So as you can imagine, the days of trusting your pet food manufacturer are done. And that's devastating for small independent companies that are doing it right, because they are swept right into the mess with everyone else. But here's what's cool. By the end of this seminar, you all will be able to know the questions you need to ask, what you need to be looking for on the back. Oh, I just got to amen. That's right. Uh-huh. I like that. I feel like building my confidence. Okay. By the end of this seminar, you will be able to ask the right questions. And I think that that's what's most important. And here's what's cool. Even if you say, I'm not going to the website, Steve's numbers were confusing, I'm totally overwhelmed. Some of you are going to leave here totally overwhelmed. Don't. The small independent retailers that are sponsoring this talks are educated, passionate, and they know all of this. And you will be able to go to them and say, oh my gosh, he talks so fast, and oh my gosh, he was so smart, he's too smart, my head blew up. Go to your independent retailer and ask again, because they are there to help you and they will guide you through this process. Frustratingly, when you call companies, that really is or when you email them, companies that are doing it right are struggling so hard to do it right that they will tell you everything. They'll talk and talk and talk because they're so proud of the animals they're using, what's going in their food, their organic veggies, their process. They're so proud that they want to shout it from a mountaintop. Versus, I'm going to show you a bunch of conversations I had with some raw food manufacturers that will lead you very quickly to understanding. You will have that gut internal feeling of, you know what, this is the company I'm going to support, or companies. We always tell you, never feed just one food, ever, ever, ever. And these are the companies that I called and I didn't get the response I wanted. They were shifty, they hung up on me, they told me a BS lie. I'm not going to support them. But at least you'll know enough to make those decisions. So what's interesting about the FDA is actually they do strictly regulate the label. And so the outside of the can, product name, weight, guaranteed analysis, there's some things that have to go on the outside of every label. And they're neurotic about the labels. They're not neurotic about what goes in the can. But they will pull a non-compliant label off the shelf in 1 second, and you've got to fix the whole problem. So they are neurotic about the outside of the label. Other little quiet regulations you should know about that the FDA says, and this is no big deal, but just be aware that when you look at a bag of pet food and you see the word "and," that means 70% of what goes in the bag has to be chicken and rice. It has to be a combination of both of those. It can be more rice, it can be 65% rice, but there has to be a combination. If you see the word "and," 70% of that combination of what's there should be in the bag. If you see the word entree, dinner, or formula, a minimum of 10% of those foods have to be in the bag. Now, I have to qualify this. Fantastic raw food companies and several gently cooked formulas, freeze-dried, and dehydrated foods have entrees. And the reason being is that when you take 10% USDA-inspected chicken meat, plus 10% inspected wings and hearts and gizzards, or 15%, that adds up to be 85% of the meat. So don't be freaked out about the word entree, but know what it means, so when you flip the bag over, you're informed of that. The word "with" down here, this says with veggies, fruits, and chicken. That means 3% of that bag has to constitute the "with" rule. And the flavor rule, this bag says beef and lamb flavor. Actually, no beef or lamb has to be in that food. They can just flavor it with a flavor additive. So some other important things to know. Thank you, Rodney Habib, who made this slide. And actually, all of the really cool slides, my bestie made for me. All of the really boring, terrible slides, I made myself. So thank you, Rodney, for this slide. Something else to know is that ingredients in pet food are listed by weight. And so the pet food industry knows that you want to see meat first on the label. They know that. So remember that right here, it says pork is first. It's hard for you guys to see, but just trust me, it says pork. Fresh pork is 70% water, like all fresh meat is. So it's heavy. So it's pretty easy to get meat first on the label because of the water content if you're using a little bit of fresh meat. But I also want you to know that almost every company is guilty of ingredient splitting, and that's not bad. What ingredient splitting is if you add up so the second, fourth, and sixth ingredient on this panel is pea flour, pea protein. So 9 pounds of pork first on the label, but 7, 7, 7, you end up with 21 pounds of peas. And that's, if you don't know this sneaky little shifty rule, you think, oh, look, it's a ton of pork. Now, there again, we don't know if it's the dead, bloated, diseased pork or if it's a healthy USDA-inspected pork. But we do know that ingredient splitting is incredibly common from almost every dry food manufacturer on the market. And species of meat is not always identified. I'm going to give you an example in a minute. The other thing you have to be aware of is that ingredients added before the raw material. So this company, no pet food company that I am aware of, grows all of their own meat, and you would be able to do, grows all of their own meat, slaughters it, and uses it themselves. I think you might be working with someone coming up. But generally speaking, pet food companies don't own the farm, own the animals, slaughter the animals, and then use their own meat. I mean, that's incredible. That's just unheard of. So this company did not grow their own pork. They're buying pork from somewhere. And keep in mind that whatever was added to that pork to preserve it, so my best example is fish. Fish are very high in fat, and most fish have to be preserved with a toxic chemical called ethoxyquin. Ethoxyquin is put all over fish. I have a friend who does a deep sea cod fishing. That's his job. He harvests millions of fish out of the ocean. They have a processing plant in the ocean, and he tells me that they process those cod as they catch them. And the ones that are not approved, they separate, and they automatically cover those cod carcasses with ethoxyquin to preserve the fats. When he sells that fish to pet food suppliers, you don't have to disclose that there's ethoxyquin in that fish. So just be aware that when pet food companies buy raw materials, it may contain sneaky, carcinogenic, not healthy substances that your pets can react to. So when you look on the label, you're like, I don't know why he just started seizuring. I don't know why he has a tick. I don't know why he's having this allergic reaction. It may be an insidious agent that's not necessarily listed on the label. So just be aware of that. So generally speaking today, our goals for today, for Steve and I, for you, we want you to identify the quality, the purpose, and the appropriateness of every ingredient in your pet food. So quality, where did it come from, and is it feed or food? Purpose, why is it in there? And appropriateness, is this food metabolically stressful or metabolically enhancing? And what I mean by that is everything we put into our pet's mouth does only one of two things. Every treat, every morsel, everything they drink, it's either moving towards a functional, healing, supportive response, or the food becomes a metabolic stressor, potentially reactive, pro-inflammatory, and then physiologically stressful. Once we hit physiologic stress, cell chemicals change, tissues begin to change, and the disease process starts. So we want you to be able to look at those ingredients and say, that's something I would put into my pet's body, or it's not.